Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to look at a very interesting video about an 800-meter runner, Pamela Jelimo. I know her through my coach, Said Aziz, because when I first came to Kenya, I started to train with Said Aziz for the 800 and 1500 meters. So I would hear a lot of stories. So I actually have a personal investment in this story. So I'm going to tell you the story based on what I've learned through Coach Aziz and my personal experience with the athlete tracking her when I was just starting the 800 meter. So let's get into the video and see how it plays out.
It's the 2008 Beijing Olympics and the women are preparing for the 800 meter final. Many are wondering if 18-year-old rising star Pamela Jelimo will be able to make history for Kenya tonight. But she would be up against the world's best, including the defending world champion from last year, Jansen. There was also three-time Olympic and World Championship silver medalist Hasna Ben Hassi, who was known for her sharp tactical race style. And of course, you had one of the greatest 800 meter runners of all time, Maria Mutola, who was retiring at the end of the season after 20 years of competing at...
Yeah, Maria Mutola, she was very strong when it comes to 800 meters. She barely used to lose, so I was just starting the 800 meters at that time, and I really thought she was going to win the Olympics at Beijing, but she didn't medal in that Olympics, but she went out with a bang. She was one of the top 800 meter runners in history, so it was a good farewell to make it at the Olympics and to make it your last race of your career.
The top of the sport. But despite her illustrious career, Father Time remains undefeated, and she was not seen as a serious gold medal contender for this Olympics. That title went to Jelimo. In this video, we will be covering her meteoric rise and the disturbing events that caused the downfall of one of the brightest young prodigies in athletics history. Before 2008, Jelimo had never run an 800 meters. The most that is displayed on her World Athletics page are some average 400 meter performances in 2007, where she placed 5th in the Kenyan Championship.
Yeah, for context, I used to live in Kapsabet for 6 months, training under Said Aziz. And, we used to go to a lot of cross-country meets because Kenyans need to get in the speed endurance. And that's where you get the speed endurance from cross-country races. And we used to see Pamela at cross-country meets. And their interaction between the coach and athlete at that time was kind of tense, because certain things behind closed doors people didn't know about, and only those two could speak on what was happening between those two. So we're going to talk about that throughout the video, and we're going to do the fine details of what I've experienced being an athlete of Coach Said Aziz and what I've learned. So let's get in.
Championships before going on to run a new personal best to win the African Junior Championships at age 17. Her time of 54.93 roughly converts to a 208.53 by the World Athletics point scale. She also claimed a national junior record in the 200 meters with a time of 24.68. But despite clearly being a talented young athlete, there was still a while to go before she would really be competitive at the international level. Or so you'd think, because on April 19th, 2008, Jelimo lined up for her first professional 800 meters. This was during the Kenyan trials for the African Championships. Her uncle had recommended she move to the longer distances, and her coach had encouraged her as well after seeing her abilities in training. This turned out to be a good decision, as Jelimo would win the...
You could tell when a coach is top tier, because most of the times coach just want to help you perform better in whatever event that you're trying to run. So if you're trying to run the 100, maybe the 400, maybe the 800, it doesn't matter. They're trying to help you to improve while you're running your certain events. But you have some coaches could look at you when you run in and say, hey, this is not your event. I had an athlete training in 2023, and my first glance when I saw him run, I said, listen, you can't run the 800. You have more of a 5,000 meter cadence, and your running style is not for 800. You have no speed, and you require speed to run the 800 meters. So I moved him up to the 5,000 meters, and he began to run good. I would run with him every day for at least 35 minutes to an hour, and each time I run with him, he improved. So when I said that My main point of view is a coach could tell what you're gonna run good in by just watching you in one race. And what he said is her uncle and Coach Aziz was the one who told her, hey, listen, stop running the sprints and go into the middle distance. And you see what happened? She improved.
Charles with a time of 2:01.02, the equivalent of a 51.56 400 meters. She would then go on to win her heat and the final of the African Championships, but this was only the start, as Jelimo would make her debut on the professional circuit in the FBK Games, where she utterly annihilated the women's under-20 record in the 800 meters by almost 1.5 seconds to run 155.76, a 6-second personal best. She then ran another junior world record barely a week later to win with a ridiculous 154.99 in Berlin. For reference, only 10 other women to this day have ever run under 155, and Jelimo did it in her 5th ever race. She followed this up with a 155.49 time to win the Oslo Bislett Games, announcing herself as the primary contender for the Olympic title later that year. This string of dominant performances set the running world into shock. Not only was she pumping out these incredible times at such a young age, she was doing it in spectacular fashion, aggressively front-running her races with no real tactics to speak of.
You got to realize with Pamela Jelimo, she was coming from a poverty-stricken home. They really didn't have any money to do anything, as far as even to pay a school fee. So to move from not having no money to go into training, she was putting it all into just trying to make it. And coach would always tell me she wasn't even running with the guys. Sorry, she wasn't running with the girls. She was running with the guys because the girls wasn't giving her no competition. And you would normally see that here in Kenya, even when they doing the distance. The girls are not run with the girls because some of them don't have no competition when they run in with their peers. So they would run with the guys. And the guys would give them more push. And even when you come to Kenya and you go to either Cameroon or you go to Chepkoilel, I'm telling you all these places because I live in Kenya, or you come to Eldoret, to Kipchoge Stadium, you will see most of the ladies running with the guys because their own pairs are not giving them the push or pacing them well, so they incorporate guys into their training. So that's how she got faster.
Her pacing was reckless and aggressive, as you would expect from a young teenage prodigy, with her Berlin performance having a 55.46 first 400 meters, on track for a world record using the traditional 2-second pacing differential. But with such abandonment for quote-unquote smart running, many people came to the realization she could run even faster. Perhaps we finally had a challenger for the long-standing world record of 153.28, set by Jarmila Kratichilova 25 years ago. 1.5 seconds was a lot to take off at the elite level, but given the obvious talent and potential Jelimo had, it was by no means out of the question. After lining up and winning the 400 and 800 meters in the Kenyan national trials, Jelimo would secure her place in her first ever Olympics. Following this, she ran yet another one.
I would say she could have broken the world record if she'd have stayed on the path of just focusing on training. You got some athletes who, like Daniel Coleman, they came into the sports, did tremendous things within 2 years, and then disappear, like they were never there. So you have long-standing athletes like Eliud Kipchoge, who've been in the spotlight for more than 20 years, and he's been at the top. I remember when he beat Bakili, and he beat Hisham El Grouge at the 2003 World Champs. And we thought he was going to win the Olympics next year, but you see how that when he came first in World Champs, but then he came third at the Olympics. But it still shows that he had the dedication to keep it going from 2003 and before that to come to even 2020. To come to even 2022, that's when he just started, to catch up with Father Time, or Father Time started to catch up with him, and he started to lose races. But if she kept the same type of mentality that, Eliud kept, she could have been one of the most dominant 800-meter runners for a whole decade.
1:55 time in Rome and dipped under her personal best at her final race before the Olympics in Paris, running 1:54.97, making her the 6th fastest athlete in 800-meter history at age 18. It was clear that the Kenyan prodigy was a huge favourite going into this race. She was by far the fastest woman on the field and had zero issues leading a quick race from gun to tape. As expected, the Kenyan had won her heats and semi-finals with ease and was clearly in peak form. Jelimo took her marks at the start line, ready to claim her first ever Olympic title. As expected, she raced off the bend noticeably faster than her competitors, but was actually challenged by compatriot Chepkosgei, who took the early lead. Jelimo slotted in behind her. The defending world champion had been one of her biggest idols in the sport, and now she was the only thing standing between her and Olympic glory. Chepkosgei took the race through at a blistering 55.41 seconds, but with a personal best of 1:56.04, it was clear this pace was near suicidal for her. It's possible she went gun-ho from the start with a philosophy to try and win no matter what, instead of settling for second place. But she could also have been acting as a de facto pacemaker for Jelimo to allow her to run the fastest time possible. Indeed, Jelimo took the lead in the second lap and powered.
Yeah, sometimes your compatriot, they would then go out in order to kill the whole field and help you to win the Olympic champ. But Koske wasn't in that position. She already won world champs the previous year, so she was trying to win the Olympic also. She was trying to set a milestone for herself in order for her to secure an Olympic gold medal. You don't go into the race if you just won a world champs year previously in order to kill yourself at the Olympics so your teammate could win, unless you're injured or unless your season wasn't going well. But seeing her at the Olympics, pretty sure her season was going well, and she make it into the finals after probably going through the heats and the semis, and now you're in the finals. No, she was trying to go out there and burn everybody out and hopefully win the gold medal, but it didn't happen.
Down the back straight, whilst Chepkosgei did her best to hang on. The gap would only widen as they came into the home straight. The defending world champion was holding off the field as Ben Hassi mounted a charge for the bronze medal. But as if it was ever in doubt, Pamela Jelimo won her first ever Olympic Games with a new personal best of 1:54.87 and became the first Kenyan woman to win an Olympic title in the event. This propelled her to international stardom and cemented Jelimo as the new face of the women's 800 meter. With Mutola finishing in 5th with a 1:57.68 finishing time, many saw this as a symbolic changing of the guard. But the season was not finished yet, and Jelimo had one final important goal to chase for the rest of this year. And in my opinion, this goal would be possibly the best and worst thing that has ever happened to her career. Before the Diamond League series we have today, there existed the Golden League, which functioned in broadly the same way. There was an individual prize pool for each event in these meets, with 15,000 euros given to the winner and smaller prizes available for each other position. Funnily enough, this is still more prize money than many Diamond League meets offer today. Go figure. In addition to the individual prize, the Golden League had a $1 million jackpot available for certain events. If an individual won all 6 of the top Golden League meets in their event, they would be eligible for the $1 million prize. These top meets were Berlin, Oslo, Rome, Paris, Zurich and Brussels. If multiple athletes achieved the 6 out of 6 victories across different disciplines, they would share the prize equally. This year,
Yeah, I remember the Golden League because you had Hisham El Gourouj and you have Bikili. They almost won the $1 million also. This is going on for many years. I think they discontinued it in the early 2000s. But you had Hisham El Gourouj, he won 5 out of 6 races, and also Bikili, he won 5 out of 6 races. He had one more 5,000 meters to run in order to win the $1 million. But you know, sometimes you don't have the best race, and then he ended up, you know, coming second in a race and losing out on, the $1 million. But he still was winning a lot of money and getting prize money for all the races he's going to. So he's still winning.
Jelimo had won 4 out of 6 of the top Golden Leagues, but still had Zurich and the IAAF World Athletics Final in the Brussels Golden League left to win. If she continued her current form, she would win life-changing money for herself and her family. But after the Olympics, it was possible that she might suffer from the post-Olympic slump, where an athlete loses ability and motivation after achieving the highest accolade in the sport available. But that had yet to be seen, and all eyes were on her as she lined up in Zurich.
Ja se kertoo sitä, että vauhti on kovaa. 55. Ja hyvin taistelee myöskin siellä taustalla myöskin Maria Motola ja tulee kovaa. Jelimo tulee.
154.01, the third fastest time in history at 18 years old. By this point, it was clear to everyone that they were watching a generational talent. The world record was officially on borrowed time, and with one more win in Brussels, she would make herself eligible for life-changing prize money. Only person she might have to share it with was the women's high jumper Blanka Vasic, who had also won 5 out of 6 meets so far. Still, 500k was 500k, and sure enough, Jelimo would line up to the Brussels Golden League final and take yet another dominant front-running victory, running 155.16. What's more, Blanka Vasic did not win her high jump event in that meet, meaning Jelimo won the full-sized $1 million jackpot. But this would spell the beginning of the end for the young Kenyan. In the immediate aftermath, Jelimo would appear to accept the prize money gracefully and cite reserved and smart plans to bank and invest the money long-term. She would be given a strong welcome when she returned to Kenya.
Yeah, you know, when you win that type of money, a lot of people come out the woodworks. I'm talking about family members you never knew. I'm talking about friends who've lost contact for many years. Everyone wants a cut of what you have. And for her case, even when coach was talking to me, you know, a lot of people get into her head. People from outside of her coaching camp was trying to recruit her because she was running so well after the fact that they didn't help her in nothing that she did. Even when we talked to coach, or when I talked to coach, he was telling me, you know, the money got to her head. As far as she was even not remembering a co-worker. She was a part of the police force in Kenya. She was in the Kenyan police force. And even a co-worker one time was trying to shake her, and she's like, who are you? And the time this person was working with her for many years. Because she has money now, it's like she above a lot of people who she worked with, and then she got a higher rank because she won the Olympics. Normally that's what happens when people, you know, win a prestigious award like the Olympics, and you in military or you in the police force, defense force, or whatever force you in, they elevate your status, and it blow up her head. It make her head really big, and she started talking down to people. And even because she won so much money, a lot of guys wanted to marry her. But she already had a boyfriend, and she wanted to keep that connection with the boyfriend to stop the guys from chasing her. It was crazy. I wasn't around when this happened. I came to Kenya in 2011, and this happened in 2008. So you would hear a lot of stories about how many guys wanted to date her after she won the Olympic, because now she has money. They want to live comfortable off her hard work. But it is what it is.
For the first time after her season, almost elevated to godlike status. In Kenya, distance runners are seen as national heroes, so they always receive a strong welcome when they return home. But Jelimo's meteoric success, along with the fact that she was a young and now very rich unmarried teenager, took the fanfare she received to another level. Jelimo toured the country, even arriving by helicopter during one parade. Thousands lined the street during her return to her home village, which now had a street named after her. Top government officials greeted and congratulated her, whilst fans held up placards showing their adoration. Many young men would hold signs saying, "Marry me, Jelimo," hoping to share the prize that was the branded Golden Girl of athletics. People argued about who had coached or discovered her, with others even claiming to be her father, obviously wanting to claim some of that $1 million prize. For some reference, that amount of money was reportedly 2,500 times the average monthly salary in Kenya at the time, which contextualizes the fervor she was receiving by a country stricken with poverty. In the end, Jelimo would make the tactical move to marry her boyfriend and co-coach at the time, Peter Murray, in order to ward off the suitors lining the streets. This did seem to work, but she was still inundated with requests for business and investment opportunities with her newfound prize money. Jelimo herself had never seemed that keen on living the life of a celebrity though. She refused to talk about the prize money in detail, stating that she kept it in a savings account in Monaco and was letting the interest rate take care of the rest. Even after her 2008 season, she maintained a modest lifestyle in a small house with very few signs of material wealth. Although it initially seemed like she was doing her best to keep a low profile in the wake of her stardom,
When I saw her, she didn't look like she was living no modest life. I mean, I thought she was living in America when I first saw her. They had a cross-country meet here in LD, And I saw, I was like, hold on, is this lady living in Kenya or she living in the US? She had a big car. She was dressed nice. She had the latest iPhone. And, she didn't look like no normal Kenyan. You could tell she was like high status Kenyan. I didn't really know her personally, but through my coach for many years, we used to talk about her because he will always mention her as his highlight athlete. She made the Olympics, she broke world records, and she won the Olympic gold. So, yeah, she wasn't living no modest life. She was living the high baller life.
Turn to the track in the 2009 season was shaky at best. Jelimo opened her season in May of 2009 in the Rabat Golden League meet. Here, she was handed her first ever loss in the event, coming a disappointed 6th place with a 2:02 finishing time. Her time in the Prefontaine Classic was even worse, where she ran 2:05.57 to place 11th. There were some signs of resurgence after this, as she claimed a win in a more minor meet in Belgium, dipping under 2 minutes to take the win, and she later qualified for the World Championships due to be held in Berlin with a 2nd place finish in the national trials. But whilst her coaches remained confident she would be ready for the World Champs, Jelimo would DNF in her semi-final due to an Achilles strain. This would cap off what had frankly been a dismal season of racing, especially compared to the heights she had achieved last year. 2010 was even worse, as Jelimo failed to even run sub 2 that season. But that wasn't the only issue that she was facing. Despite the initial fairy tale love story with her husband, and the fact that she seemed to be well adjusted and grounded in response to her newfound prize money and celebritydom, there was a new image of Pamela Jelimo being formed. The initial coach most widely credited with her rise in success, Syed Aziz, conducted an interview that year where he claimed that Jelimo had been unruly in training after 2008 and had let the success get to her head.
Yeah, like I said, coach used to say she has got ruined, man. She don't want to come to practice. When she do come to practice, she come to practice late. And when she come to practice, she don't want to do the training. So how you expect to stay to the top when you're not doing the training? You don't have the discipline. You don't want to listen to nobody. You feel that you high status now that you don't have to do any training no more. You just think natural talent is going to take you to wherever you want to go. But in order for her to get there, she had to go through the training process, do all the drills, do all the training sessions, morning runs, whatever she needed to do. When she didn't have no money, she was doing it and she was listening and she's behaving. Because most of the times she was getting money from her coach. And then people would help her because they see she was actually improving when she started running the 800 meters. So now that she has money, why am I listening to y'all? I'm a millionaire. And by Kenyan status, back in the day, the Kenyan shilling was 80 shillings to $1, so it's kind of strong. So she had about 80 million Kenyan shillings at the time if she won the $1 million. Now today, if she'd have won that $1 million, she's gonna have 127 million Kenyan shillings, which the money has went down. But through this fame and unfortunately she came about, she started to let it get to her head and, reject the training process that got her the way she was. So that was the start of her decline.
Supposedly happy relationship with her partner and coach had shown signs of cracking, and they eventually divorced in 2012. This would be a messy affair, as the two would enter a court battle with Murray trying to claim some of Jelimo's wealth, as was his theoretical right as her now ex-husband. Jelimo herself said the divorce was due to him becoming more and more controlling, and culminated with her discovering that he had been cheating on her with another woman, who Murray had even had a child with. Jelimo also said that they had never actually legally married, as whilst they had initially told the press this story to stop her suitors, Murray had never proposed and a ceremony never happened, much to her dismay. But Murray claimed otherwise, saying that Jelimo was the secretive and controlling one, especially with their finances, as he claimed she ensured he was entirely dependent on her to survive. Many attribute this strained relationship to her downfall, and Murray, who appeared to take the dominant role in her coaching post-2008, did not seem to have the expertise to guide her correctly. But surprisingly, in 2012, she seemed to be mounting an unlikely comeback, taking the world indoor title that year.
Yeah, the 2012 World Indoors, I was watching it with Coach Aziz in a restaurant, and it was so funny that we thought she wasn't going to win. I mean, she hasn't been at the top level for several years, and now at the 2012 World Indoors, he's like, she's not going to win. She's not in tip-top shape. But when she won, he's like, what? Coach blurted, this woman need to give me my money. I started laughing. The only thing I could think in my mind is probably she wasn't reciprocating the same type of help that he was giving her. If, let's put it in perspective, if I'm helping you, to get where you need to be, I would not even ask you for no money. It will be just something unspoken. Help me now that you up. Because Kenya is not, a wealthy place to live. It's not no Dubai. People can't live off whatever the country is making. So you have to depend on each other. So if I help you to get out of poverty, at least you could help me to try to get out of poverty. And she was not doing that. She wasn't helping Coach. She actually left Coach after she got a little bit of fame. So to each his own.
This would be followed up by several wins in the now named Diamond League series. Whilst these wins weren't as dominant as her 2008 season, there was certainly some interest to see how she could do in the London 2012 Olympics. Who knows, with a good race and a solid peak, she could be an outside threat for that gold medal. The initial pace was taken out hard and Jelimo tucked in nicely behind the leading runners. As the others began to fade, she made a break for the lead down the back straight of the second lap. Could this be her moment of redemption? All her pain and suffering in the last 3 years could be silenced with this win. But eventually, the young Kenyan tightened up in the last 200 meters and was swallowed up by the chasers. She finished in a heartbreaking 4th place and barely seemed to run through the line, a mistake which would cost her the bronze medal. Her 4th place was upgraded to a silver medal 10 years later after the Russian state-sponsored doping scandal was revealed, but it was too little too late. This race served as the final blow to Jelimo's career, and in the end she would never compete professionally again, aside from a few indoor meets in 2014. And just like that, the greatest talent in women's 800 meter history was snuffed out. If you want to see a systematic analysis on how often prodigies actually
Yeah, that's crazy. Like I said, she could take the spot at least for a decade. Most top runners, if you look at them, they be on top for a long time. Look at Faith Kipyegon. She won when she was 18, and now she's still winning, and she's over 30. So I get to see Pamela Jelimo winning from 18 to more, probably 30, and that's like a 12-year winning streak if she kept with the training process. She didn't believe in it once she started making money, and that's what happens with some people. They let the money get to their head, and they forget where they came from. They don't want to put back what people put into them. It's like, fill my cup, and I'm not going to fill your cup. I'm going to kick it over, and you got to fend for yourself. So sometimes you got to step back and say, what cost me to be so good? Who's in my life helping me to get to where I am today? Let me pour into them so they could pour back into me and I can stay at the top. If you look at Eliud Kipchoge, he's never been a person to be gloating. He don't talk down to nobody. You don't hear no bad news about him. The only last maybe hiccup I heard about him is when the late, great Kelvin Kiptum, passed away. And people, blame him for something that was out of his control. He said he lost a lot of friends because of something that he couldn't control. So, guys, if you want to be successful in anything like track and field, basketball, whatever sport you decide to do, you got to be humble, you got to stay dedicated, and you got to listen to people who are trying to get you to where you need to be. And guys, is this something you like? Can you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel? And I'm going to see you on the next one. Peace.